This is Los Angeles, California, and this is the 6th Street Viaduct. It's a brand new $588 million bridge, the largest bridge project in the history of Los Angeles. It connects the Arts District in downtown with the Boyle Heights neighborhood to the east. Along the way, it crosses 16 lanes of highway, 18 train tracks, parks, buildings, multiple side streets, and of course, the Los Angeles River.
But this bridge's scale isn't the only thing that makes it incredible.
Its design was led by an architecture firm, Michael Maltzan Architecture, who was awarded the project after winning a design competition in 2012.
Architects aren't usually part of a team of infrastructural projects like this, but largely due to Michael Maltzan's vision, the complex set of variables and forces at play with the 6th Street Bridge are beautifully woven together in a structure that is equal parts visual landmark, neighborhood amenity, and transportation infrastructure.
And here we are 10 years after the design competition, and the bridge is nearing its completion. And in this video, we're going to explore this transformative project and speak with some of its architects to learn more about the design and the process of its construction. Can a bridge even be considered architecture? Michael Maltzan thinks so.
I think a bridge can be architecture.
For him, architecture encompasses the aesthetic ambitions of the built environment, but it can also be something more.
Bridges play this other role in the way that they connect communities, the way that they cross divides, the way that they stitch together and knit together cities and communities. And I think that's one of the fundamental roles and responsibilities of architecture.
In order to understand the design, we need to go back a bit to the bridge that was on the site only a few years earlier. The original bridge was part of an important evolution of the city, which in the early 1900s made the difficult decision to delaminate the different modes of transport to facilitate the smooth flow of different forms of traffic. This way, car traffic wouldn't have to wait for trains, for example. This required bridges, and the city embarked on a frenzy to build them. Each had a different theme, like Spanish conquistadors or Greek or Roman themes. But the 6th Street Bridge was the last one constructed, and it had a much more modern, unadorned, and forward-looking design. The double-arched structure quickly became an important icon in the city. How it looked was just as important as how well it connected traffic. It served as a backdrop to films like Grease, Charlie's Angels, The Mask, Terminator, or The Dark Knight Rises. 80 films, music videos, or TV shows were shot here every single year.
But despite its outward composure, on the inside, the bridge was slowly rotting away. You see that the bridge used sand that was untested, which over time reacted with the cement and the water to form a kind of gel that just washed away. And by 2016, it was no longer structurally capable of withstanding an earthquake and had to be decommissioned. This deterioration was recognized early enough, and conversations around the best way to replace the bridge took on a number of different forms. Some people believe that it should just be rebuilt as it was. After all, so many have grown to appreciate that iconic design. But city officials ultimately recognized the importance of the project to represent the future of Los Angeles and not just its past.
We started in our approach to the design to broaden the mandate for the bridge that moved the bridge from something which was about crossing the river to something that was really about weaving the city together again. Those ideas came from an architectural approach to an engineering and infrastructural problem.
That approach led to a bridge that is a 3,500 feet or 1,000 meter long reinforced concrete structure. The top deck floats above the earth attached to 10 pairs of arches for a total of 20. It provides space for 4 lanes of traffic and 2 bike lanes, flanked with pedestrian walkways on either side. This elevated space connects to the ground below with stairs that run atop the arches. The bikeways, on the other hand, connect with 2 ramps, one that snakes up and through the underside of the bridge, and the other which corkscrews 3 times all the way to the ground.
The large idea of taking the original 2 pairs of arches of the bridge that existed before and expanding those, a series of arches tying together the different parts of the city, like an extended ribbon. That initial idea has a kind of clarity and strength to it. The more that you work on the bridge, the more it became clear that that original idea is in many ways an armature. And the development really came in response to these different complexities, which you can't solve all at one time. You have to take them on one at a time.
I love when architecture just copies an architectural elements to solve almost everything. Other examples of this might be the Kimball Art Museum by Lou Kahn or the Vault House by Johnston Mark Lee. It's like, yo, I heard you like arches, so I gave you 20 of them. They hold up the bridge, you can climb on them, walk under them. I got upside down ones and right side up ones. After sitting down with Michael, I headed to the bridge that's just a few minutes away with another architect that worked on the project, Paul Stolting, to show me some of its details.
So generally the construction has been developing from east to west, and right now you can see the installation of the barrier rail, concrete barrier rail, which separates the sidewalk from the vehicle and the bike lanes, which are on this side. Throughout the whole process, you can really see the snapshot of where they are in the stages. So it's a network tied arch structure. The network tied means it crisscrosses. The arches were poured without the cables in place, and then the cable was placed and then tightened. And you can see all the electrical wires up above. They're monitoring the tension and the performance of the cables, some computer system, and then they come in and fine tune it as it's sort of settling into place.
We were also able to get a sense of what it would be like to experience the bridge once it was complete, and how the design will allow people to view the city while walking across or standing on top of it.
At every location, it's known as the jump span, the span in between the arches. And you have the opportunity, because there are no cables there, to push the railing out to the edge and really have the full view.
So it kind of pushes you back out into the neighborhood, or back out into the city.
I think so.
This was all part of Michael Maltzan's vision for how the bridge could be something to look at, while also being something great to look out from.
One of the pieces of the brief was that the new bridge was meant to be an icon in the city.
So he looked at other very famous iconic structures like the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, the Statue of Liberty in New York, and the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Even though all of these look very different, he was able to find a common way that these structures worked within their context.
Every one of them was, in fact, actually an observatory. That you went to those structures, you went up into them, and you got a chance to see out, to see the city around you. And I think that's one of the roles that the bridge is going to play, and that the arches play, that it's just as important to be on the bridge and to see and observe the city, and to, in a way, maybe even dream a little bit about how the city is evolving, what it's going to become, what its history has been, but what its future actually looks like.
In some ways, bridges are naturally well suited to becoming enduring landmarks in a city. Harper's Weekly wrote in 1883 about the Brooklyn Bridge. It so happens that the work that is likely to be our most durable monument, and to convey some knowledge of us to the most remote posterity, is a work of bare utility. Not a shrine, not a fortress, not a palace, but a bridge. But a bridge isn't just serving people that are looking at it from afar, or looking out from its top side. It also has a real impact on the areas where it touches down. At a very local level, a bridge could be either an unruly neighbor or a unique amenity.
I've often said that connects east to west horizontally, but it's also a bridge which connects bottom to top vertically. And that's where you start to really get a sense of how it's knitting the city together three-dimensionally, not just in plan, but truly in 3 dimensions on the site. Most people think about the experience on the deck, but that's only half of the bridge and the experience of the bridge. The other half is everything below the deck. And that's where so much community activity is going to take place, so much of a connection to the different neighborhoods, but it's also where a huge amount of the design and the architecture and the aesthetics of the bridge will start to reveal themselves. These arches that come down have this reverse form, curvilinear form, that comes across and becomes the major beams supporting the deck. And there's a fluidity and a kind of connected line that you'll see when you're underneath the bridge that I think it is going to be a huge surprise and a phenomenal experience for people.
I have to agree that this is really where the architecture of the bridge presents a truly unique urban experience.
Here's where you feel the forces at play.
The arches touch down with a concrete, Y-shaped base, two arches meeting and resting on an isolator. The entire bridge floats on these bearings that allow it to move up to 30 inches or almost a meter in any direction. This ensures that it will survive earthquakes, and it makes it one of the largest base-isolated structures in the world. But even though the bridge doesn't root itself in the ground structurally, it creates multiple connections for people to filter in and around it.
This thing behind me is a large winding bike path that takes you all the way from the top, all the way down to the bottom, and back again. It hasn't been fully poured yet, so you can see some of the wooden formwork and some of the steel that's holding up that formwork that will go away once all the concrete is poured.
Los Angeles has been known for much of its life as an infrastructure city. The highways, especially the interstates, have defined the city. Over time, we've come to realize that they act as a kind of monoculture of use. They just do one thing. They move cars from one side of the city to another, not as well as they used to, and they tend to divide communities. I think with this bridge, the goal is to create a bridge that's really a multiculture of uses and purposes and ambitions to be infrastructure that weaves the city together as opposed to divide it.
Architects are generalists, able to think about people, forces, space, and material all coming together to solve a problem, to identify opportunities. We're past the days of singular urban visions of utopia that failed so spectacularly in the 20th century. Today, perhaps it's more about balancing the complex set of variables and conversations that lead to sympathetic yet transformative projects like the 6th Street Viaduct.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. We'll continue to put out videos on Thursdays, and while you're waiting for the next one, check out some of these others. See you over there.